Vegas. I also wouldn't hold my breath that the whole underground escort industry that exists in Las Vegas is going to rebound after we've just had a viral pandemic. With people being so much more health conscious now, you'd expect them to be more hesitant to engage in activities that might give them AIDS. You know, that pesky STD that suppresses your immune system so you can easily die of something like coronavirus? Hello everyone, I'm going to be talking about two different topics today. The first is the bleak future facing the city of Las Vegas. Secondly, businesses are lobbying Congress right now to be granted immunity from coronavirus lawsuits. So for the families of workers who die from coronavirus, who should they be able to sue? The employer? China? What about the United States? So recently, the mayor of Las Vegas was in an embarrassing interview with CNN anchor Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper rightly called her out for what was essentially shilling on behalf of the casinos. She was, of course, demanding that stay-at-home be lifted and the casinos be allowed to immediately reopen. Of course, it is not the mayor of Las Vegas who gets to make a decision like that. It would be up to the governor of Nevada. Now let me make something real clear. CNN should not be lauded here. They are not the advocates for health and worker safety that they're portraying themselves as. Here's how the politics of coronavirus are working right now. In the first stage of coronavirus politics, the left was trying to blame Donald Trump for being unprepared for the event. Meanwhile, the right argued that this was an unforeseen crisis, that even leftist media types in the months leading up to the pandemic downplayed the disease. They warned people that they needed to be more concerned about the flu, and that when it did become apparent that it was going to be a crisis, President Trump responded accordingly. So that was the first stage. We're now moving into the second stage of coronavirus politics. Prompted by right-wing pundits with highly questionable motives, people like Ben Shapiro, a bunch of right-wing people began to protest to reopen the economy immediately. In turn, Donald Trump tweeted tacit support towards these protesters. Now, does that mean that Donald Trump wants to reopen the economy immediately? Donald Trump is addressing this controversy by being deliberately vague and trying to dog whistle to both sides of the debate. For example, today when the state of Georgia reopened its economy, Donald Trump criticized Georgia and indicated that it was too early. So which is it? Does President Trump support the protesters who want to reopen the economy, or does he support the people who want to be more cautious? Well, you can't really tell. Well, President Trump is trying to position himself so that in the future, he can claim to have taken one side or the other. You see, what Donald Trump knows is that all of these experts have no freaking clue what's going to happen if we try and reopen the economy right now. There are experts who say that there's going to be another wave of coronavirus. There's other experts who say, oh, we can reopen the economy and it'll be fine. Nobody knows. So if states start opening up and there's no new wave of infections, Donald Trump wants to be able to say, oh yeah, I supported those protesters, the ones who wanted to reopen the economy. And if states start reopening and coronavirus spreads and it's like New York City all over again, Donald Trump wants to be in a position where he can say, oh, I warned those state governors they were opening too early. Given the uncertain future of this country, President Trump is being smart politically. Of course, his arch nemesis, the mainstream media, is not smart. They have Trump derangement syndrome. They don't understand nuance or political calculus. The only thing they know is orange man bad. So after Donald Trump tweeted tacit support to these right-wing protesters, all of a sudden now the mainstream media has adopted the position that the states need to be closed as long as possible. So in the near future, expect to be inundated with fear-mongering. Now, if you consider yourself someone on the right, don't be stupid like the media and then just automatically take the opposite position. Don't just assume because the media is being dishonest about the situation and they're fear-mongering that means we should take the opposite side, that the economy needs to reopen immediately. Instead, be smart like Trump and understand that it's uncertain what will happen in the future. One thing that isn't uncertain, though, in my view, is that the city of Las Vegas is screwed. It doesn't matter if the mayor gets her wish and the economy is reopened tomorrow, or if it's reopened 3 months from now. The economic future of the coronavirus is going to absolutely devastate Las Vegas. Even when the economy reopens, people are going to be too afraid to go to places where large numbers of people congregate. It's going to have a huge economic effect. Now, how big of an effect will this have? Well, I would point out the example of the movie The Interview. For those of you who don't remember, The Interview was a James Franco, Seth Rogen movie about a journalist who gets enlisted by the CIA to assassinate Kim Jong-un while interviewing him. In response to the production of this movie, the North Korean government hacked into Sony Pictures Entertainment's email server and released various emails that were very embarrassing to Sony. In typical North Korean fashion, they also threatened violence if the movie were released. Even though North Korea was well known to have a reputation for empty threats and bullshitting, Sony Pictures concluded the fear caused by this extremely vague North Korean threat would be enough to prevent the movie from being profitable if released out into US theaters. The power of fear was so powerful that Sony Pictures ended up releasing the movie for free over the internet. If the mayor of Las Vegas thinks that they're just going to reopen these casinos and it's just going to be business as usual, she has no idea what she's talking about. So what's going to happen to the economy of Las Vegas? Assuming it reopens and assuming business falls dramatically, well, a lot of the workers that used to work there, they're going to get laid off. They're not going to have jobs at these casinos anymore. What's going to happen to the city of Las Vegas? Well, the casinos are going to have to lay off a lot of their employees. Big sections of these casinos are going to get walled off. People are going to move out of the city because there's not going to be jobs. Las Vegas neighborhoods are going to be full of vacant properties. The clientele of Las Vegas, at least in my experience, tended to be older people. These are going to be the people most afraid of catching a disease like coronavirus. They're not going to go back to gambling the second Las Vegas reopens. Here's another issue. In his book, The World Beyond Your Head, which is an excellent book, by the way, I highly recommend it, author Matthew Crawford discusses the fact that a huge percentage of the Las Vegas population gambles away all of their money every month. I forget the exact statistic, but it's astronomically high. It's somewhere along the lines of 70% of Las Vegas residents don't save up any money every month because all of the excess money in their paycheck after they've paid rent goes to gambling. Matthew Crawford concludes that the reason why this is because of the slot machine, a machine specifically engineered to keep people hooked until every last dollar that they have has been extinguished through the machine. That's what slot machines are designed to do. The implications of this, of course, are that the population of Las Vegas are going to be one of the most poorly prepared for an economic crisis in the country. Their population is going to be amongst those with the least amount of savings right now, which means everything is going to be accelerated. If casinos are laying off their workers, those people are going to need money immediately. They're going to leave Las Vegas immediately. I also wouldn't hold my breath that the whole underground escort industry that exists in Las Vegas is going to rebound after we've just had a viral pandemic. With people being so much more health conscious now, you'd expect them to be more hesitant to engage in activities that might give them AIDS. You know, that pesky STD that suppresses your immune system so you can easily die of something like coronavirus. Another big problem for Las Vegas is that when the economy does finally reopen, people are going to want to wear face masks when they come to gamble. Now, there are people out there who are professional gamblers. Despite the fact that the odds are rigged at the casino, they're able to count cards, which gives them an advantage. It ensures that they can win most of the time. What casinos do is they learn who these people are and then they ban them from their casino. If you read any news article about what it's like to be a professional gambler, you'll learn that they constantly have to travel to different casinos because they're always getting banned. At this point, I suspect most Las Vegas casinos probably use some sort of facial recognition, some sort of database that has photographs of all of these people. Well, if Las Vegas is going to start allowing people to wear face masks because of the coronavirus, then these people are going to be able to slip in undetected. It's easy to beat facial recognition if you're wearing a mask. So the casinos have to decide, are they going to turn away customers who want to gamble while wearing a face mask, or are they going to deal with all of the lost revenue to professional gamblers and other cheaters who are able to slip into the casino undetected because they're wearing surgical masks? Either way, this is going to eat away at Las Vegas's bottom line. So how do I feel about this? Well, good riddance is what I say. I never understood the appeal of Las Vegas to begin with. Having grown up playing actual video games, I never understood why people were so enamored with these slot machines where literally all they do is pull a lever and then it tells them whether they've won money or not. You couldn't come up with anything a little bit more exciting than that? I mean, right now you have all of these free-to-play games, which are basically gambling, but at least they have actual gameplay hooks. There's more to it than just you getting some potential random reward. Why has there been no innovation in casino machine gambling in Las Vegas for decades at this point? Sure, you can play video poker, where your odds are even more terrible than the slot machines, and where the video screen looks like it's from an Apple II computer in the 80s. Of course, if you have a lot of money which you're looking to lose, you can also play the table games. Those have better odds, but you're still most likely to lose. And those are the fastest ways for you to lose several $1,000s quickly. I just don't understand the appeal of playing games that are rigged so you're likely to lose. Sure, there are other things to do than gamble in Las Vegas. I mean, you could always walk the strip, which is insanely crowded, full of drunk people, and have Mexicans throw little business cards at you with nude photos of hookers on them. But for me personally, there's a million other places I'd rather go than Las Vegas. Of course, you also have all of the entertainment that Las Vegas offers, which I never found to be particularly entertaining, as well as the overpriced restaurants that I was never interested in eating at. I suspect that visiting Las Vegas casinos in the future is going to be kind of like going to an indoor shopping mall today. There's hardly going to be any people there, and half the facilities are going to be shut down. In a period of time where people are seeking out purity, the so-called city of sin is not going to be on their destination list. Right now, business groups are trying to lobby Congress to pass legislation which would make it impossible for its workers to sue these businesses if they contract coronavirus. Additionally, there are families of American citizens who have died from coronavirus who want to sue the government of China for causing the infection. Let's start with workers. To the extent that Congress passes any sort of legislation that shields businesses from lawsuits, I would say that that would be unconstitutional. As US citizens, we all have property rights, and those property rights extend to our own bodies. Our arms, our legs, our health, that is all of our property. If a business is negligent and adequately fails to protect its workers, and one of the workers becomes sick and dies as a result of that, that's a loss of property caused by the business. The worker's family is entitled to recover the cost of that property. The U.S. Declaration of Independence declares that Americans have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If we really do have those individual rights, if that section of the Declaration of Independence is going to have any meaning whatsoever, then Congress cannot pass a law that says that U.S. employers can force its workers to work in dangerous situations where they might contract coronavirus, and then when that happens, that worker's family has no recourse against the employer. Because if that's what the US law is going to be, then workers don't have the right to life. They don't have the right to liberty. They don't have the right to the pursuit of happiness. The ability for a family to sue someone whose negligence causes the death of their family member is a foundational principle in our justice system. The idea that businesses would even propose such a law is absolutely outrageous. It shows how bad things have gotten in the United States, how workers are just viewed as expendable at this point. I mean, imagine the thought process of the people proposing this. Well, we can't have businesses getting sued if the employees get the coronavirus. Why is the emphasis on the bottom line for businesses more important than workers' lives? Why is it so unfathomable that after a family member dies because a business was negligent, that family be compensated for that death? This sort of thing is why young Americans are increasingly identifying themselves as socialist. It's why Bernie Sanders was overwhelmingly favored by young Americans. It's why Bernie Sanders was such a popular presidential candidate who would have won the Democratic primary if it had not been rigged against him. Let me make this clear. Workers who die of coronavirus because their employer was negligent should have their families compensated for it. Businesses should not be shielded from these lawsuits. This same principle applies to essential workers. If you are a hospital, you have an obligation to make sure that your nurses and doctors have adequate protective equipment so that they don't contract the disease. Now, what about all of these people who want to sue China? My personal thoughts on this is a waste of time. Even if you win the lawsuit, do you really expect the government of China to pay any sort of judgment? Do you really expect that they're going to honor a judgment by a US court that they need to compensate people for causing the coronavirus? Right now, the Chinese government is taking the position that the coronavirus was created by the United States. There is no way in hell China is ever going to admit fault for this, that they're ever going to pay any US judgments against them saying that they were negligent in causing the coronavirus. It's never going to happen. Just like China routinely lies and cheats when it comes to its trading with the United States, they're not going to deal honest and fairly with the US legal system. Secondly, I don't even think there is a good negligence case to be made against the Chinese government. Yes, China bungled the initial response to the virus. Yes, they lied about it. Yes, they covered up some of the things that were happening. But when it became readily apparent that this thing was out of control, the Chinese government cracked down hard on it. They responded with a very heavy hand, using authoritarian measures to clamp down on the disease. This included some pretty despicable things that they did, like welding people's doors shut and letting them die in their houses. But as terrible as those things were, it seemed to eradicate the disease. Wuhan has been reopened again. Sure, I think the numbers of deaths that China has released is probably inaccurate. It's probably a lie. Their claims that the virus originated in the United States is an obvious lie, but it appears that they did take heavy-handed efforts that helped eradicate the disease. Is China responsible for the United States becoming the most infected country in the world? The United States put a travel ban to prevent people from China entering the United States. Although there were people who spread the disease from China to the United States, those people were quickly isolated. Coronavirus was under control for months in the United States. So what happened? Well, other countries who didn't want to be viewed as being racist, like Italy and Iran, did not ban people from China. Because they did not ban people from China, they quickly became overwhelmed with infections. Unlike the small number of cases the United States had, they had an overwhelming number of cases. Now, the United States at this time only banned travel from China. It didn't ban travel from any other country that didn't ban China. The United States has long been a global hub. We accept immigrants and refugees from all over the world. Our borders are wide open. Pretty much anyone who wants to come here can come here. Our businesses are all multinational corporations with corporate offices all over the world. So all that would need to happen for the United States to become the most infected country in the world is the coronavirus would have to catch wind literally in any country other than China. Ground zero of where the coronavirus hit was New York City. New York City has a very diverse population. It is much more diverse than most US cities. In New York City, there are entire neighborhoods where everyone in the neighborhood is ethnically Persian. Persian, of course, is the ethnicity of the people of Iran. Even though Iran hates America, even though they're constantly killing our soldiers in Iraq, we still allow Iranians who want to immigrate to the United States to come. So it's not surprising that when Iran, a third world country under devastating sanctions by the United States, became overwhelmed by the coronavirus, that New York City quickly also became overwhelmed. People going back and forth between the United States and Italy also played a large role in spreading the virus here. Now, the United States itself acts like kind of like a microcosm for the world. We're not a country of isolated localities that take care of themselves. We're a country of mega corporations that has stores and offices located all across the country. So if just one of our cities, let's say the largest city, New York City, gets infected with the coronavirus, then it'll quickly spread throughout the entire country. So what ends up happening? New York City gets hit hard by this, and then the entire rest of the economy has to be forcibly shut down. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think that China was the one that was negligent. It seems like Italy and Iran were the ones being negligent when they didn't ban travel between their countries and China, even though the United States had issued the same travel ban, and it was well known that a terrible viral pandemic was raging in those countries. Italy was negligent when it refused to do the travel ban because it was afraid of being accused of racism. The United States was negligent in the fact to the extent that the United States was a global hub, it would likely be ground zero for any sort of global pandemic. Yet the only country that it banned travel to was China. So no, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for Americans to sue China and argue that they're responsible for coronavirus deaths in the United States. China is not the United States' dad. We need to take self-responsibility for the fact that our managerial class here in the United States utterly failed to protect us. And we had to sacrifice our entire economy because of that. That isn't China's fault. It's the fault of the terrible leadership that we have in this country. Now, should Americans be able to sue their own government for coronavirus? I have mixed feelings on this. My first thought is that I generally favor the principle of sovereign immunity. Since the government is funded through taxes, I think we are better off all just assuming the risk that we may be harmed by the negligence of the government, rather than allow through costly lawsuits compensation to people who were harmed by government negligence. The better public policy, in my view, then, is sovereign immunity, which means that citizens cannot sue the government. Now, I'm not a big fan of the show South Park, so don't consider this any sort of endorsement. But occasionally that show, especially during its early days, would have episodes that focused on more esoteric cultural or political concepts. One such episode dealt with the issue of sovereign immunity. It involved characters in the show filing a series of frivolous lawsuits against the public school system. This created a series of windfalls for the characters in the show, but they would always be fleeting because the public school would have to constantly raise tax revenue in order to fund the school system. The episode does a pretty good job of showing how, from an economic perspective, it just doesn't make sense to allow citizens to sue their government. Now, that being said, I'm going to take a nuanced approach to this. The federal government has shown that it has the capacity to give trillions of dollars in bailouts to huge mega banks and multinational corporations, while simultaneously it has given absolute peanuts to average Americans. Therefore, from the perspective of an ordinary American worker, I think it would be fair to conclude that the United States government isn't really their government. It doesn't represent his or her interest, and any taxes this worker pays to the federal government amount to a theft. It's a theft because none of those taxes are used to provide services to the worker. Instead, they are transferred to other economic actors in the system. In this way, the federal government of the United States isn't really a government, it's a wealth redistribution scheme. Money from middle-class working people is redistributed to huge banks and multinational corporations who themselves avoid having to pay taxes through various accounting practices and tax shelters. It's basically a form of communism that works in reverse. Given that is the case, I think that individual Americans who lose family members to the coronavirus should not be able to sue their state governments. The state government should have sovereign immunity. At the same time, they should be allowed to sue the federal government. The federal government, of course, in my view, is the most culpable party in all of this. Anyways, that's all I have to say on this issue. If you enjoyed this video and you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe.